to the Sounds of Stadia podcast, episode 96. You're joining myself, Chris, your host for today, alongside the man of many pixels, returning once again, Mr. Richie. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm not bad, thank you. I'm not bad. We're recording a little bit earlier than usual. Not as early as we have been doing in recent weeks. We've missed no news, we don't think. But the people here...
Well, you can guarantee something will drop on Monday. It always does.
Yeah, I mean, we do have pro games probably due to be announced next week.
Yeah.
But at the earliest, it's probably going to be Tuesday. I'm expecting it. Fingers crossed it's going to be Thursday, so we'll wrap up all that on next week's show. Because everyone is here for episode 96 of the Sounds of Stadia podcast, the longest running Stadia podcast this side of Google Maps. Very, very soon, Richie, we're going to be catching up on that magic episode 100. And we've got a great show for you all this week where we round up all of the gaming and Stadia news. We're going to be talking about some new games announced for Stadia, some exciting ones from Ubisoft. We're going to be talking about some EA games, not so much announced for Stadia, and some exciting news in and amongst it. And I've got a theory, Richie, I know why one of the games very particularly isn't coming to Stadia. I've heard something this last week, a rumour or a story that we're going to dig into about one of the bigger titles, so... I'll put that pin in that and tease our viewers and listeners out there.
Is it Mafia?
It's not. No, we will talk about that, but it's not. It's not Mafia. And before we do get into the show, don't forget to give the video a like if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Click that bell so you're kept in the loop with all things Sounds of Stadia. Like our podcast we bring you every week. Like our live streams of games we bring you every Thursday on youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia. And Richie, this past Thursday, we watched along and reacted live to the EA Play event. So we also cover conferences within the games industry. And we didn't see much Stadia news, albeit. However, we saw games. We saw games, and we're all gamers at heart. Yeah. So thank you everyone who is watching along, who's listening along. I know a lot of you listen on our podcast services out there in the digital cloud as well. Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts, all of those magical things out there. So if you're on the move, if you're keeping busy, if you're getting back out there to work, you can listen to us in your ears as well as see us on the YouTube channel. And we thank you very much for your support. Just like our wonderful members, if you want to support the channel a little bit more, you can click join below on the YouTube video, where from as little as 99 pence, you get early access to SideQuest up to 6 days early, almost an entire week before the general public get it on Fridays. So if you watched our last week's episode where myself, Richie and our lovely guest Clive Illenden broke down the problem, or the situation we should say, with sequels not coming to Stadia, it was a very good episode. Thank you again for everyone who's checked that out.
Very interesting one going into the EA Play as well.
Yeah, it kind of added a little bit more, another undertone to the conversation. So go check that out if you haven't done so already. But you are, of course, here for all of your Stadia and gaming news rounded up for episode 96. But before we dive into all the juicy news, Richie, I would love to know what you've been playing this week, because I saw a little first look go up on the channel that you surprised even me with.
I've played quite a few things this week. I've played a bit of FIFA. I've played a bit more of Immortal Phoenix Rising. Today, for some reason, I decided to play a bit of Civ, because that's always a smart idea. I'll play a bit of Civ. I played an hour or two of Civ. 4 hours later, still playing. But the one you're referring to is One Piece World Seeker.
Yeah. So we'll get into that in the actual news part of the day. But yeah, so you're just pimping yourself out to every game that takes your fancy right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. And I am very keen. I know, that was a weird way of describing it. I
like how you just went, I'm very keen. I'm pimping myself out. Chris is keen. There you go.
Very keen. Why not? I'm very keen to know how your journey through, of course, Immortals Phoenix Rising is going. Yes. You bought the game full price. You barely touched it. You went back when it was on sale for £12. I'm curious how your journey in the mythological Greece is going.
It's gone quite well. I mean, it's a Ubisoft game. It's a very fun one. I like the quirky humour, the backwards and forwards between Zeus and Prometheus. Mm-hmm. Although I must admit, I usually have a podcast or something on when I'm just grinding out stuff. I'll turn things off for when I'm doing like major story beats, but I've got 2 out of 4 gods done, so I'm probably getting close to halfway through the game, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's laid out quite well, and you're completely right. Yeah. The comedy was one of the surprises, the pleasant surprises in the game that I found.
And I'm not 100%ing like each quadrant of the map before I move on, but I'm almost 100% in each quadrant of the map. So most of the stuff is done. It's only like the really tricky or complicated stuff that at some point when I'll come back to that later. Or if I got a message saying I don't have the right god power.
Yeah, it's very good. The biggest thing for me with the mods, I just thought the combat and the general just like exploration, like Ubisoft do it so well. It was just fun.
Yeah.
It was just like hack and slash. Like I said, ideal for podcasts because there's not much.
It's quite light.
Yeah.
It's quite, yeah.
It really is. That's been fantastic. Speaking of story, I've started the second Mass Effect game now, Mass Effect 2 from the Legendary Edition, which of course both of us wanted to play it on Stadia, and we're going to get to EA as part of the news this week. Unfortunately not. Played one, took a break. Played Ratchet and Clank, took a break. Sorry, Stadia purists out there. There's 2 games that I've not played on the platform. I would have done if I could have done. Not my fault. And then I've moved on. I've had that little palate cleanser, and I've now moved on to the second one, which everyone is telling me it's the best. It's the best of the lot. So
yeah, that's what I've always heard about it, and I need to go back to Mass Effect. I need to just grind through the buggy mess that was Mass Effect 1 as I experienced it, and just grind through, get through the story, and then focus on 2.
Yeah.
I think I might do that after Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Yeah. The production quality immediately takes a jump for the second one. You can see it as soon as it starts. Like just the layout, the mechanics, some of the stuff they clearly learnt from mistakes of the first one, they put it into practice. So really enjoying it so far. The lore is like, again, any RPG. It's like it's so rich, and BioWare famed for that. So I'm starting to see why, and I totally get why it's such a beloved franchise, and I'm falling in love with some of the characters and their story arcs, and seeing some returning characters from the first game come back to the sequels. Like, I know that person, I know them. So I'm interested to see where that one goes. But I do have a very busy week, so hopefully although I'm off work, so it's a weird one. I've got a super busy week, but I also might find a bit of extra time to game where I possibly can. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. On Stadia, I've been doing a little bit more Rainbow Six Siege, jumping in for the odd game here or there, a little bit of FIFA in the garden, because it's been so warm here in the UK. And I put a post up on Twitter early last week, I think, playing Rainbow Six Siege in the garden, using some 5G action. So
I've never tried Siege in the garden. I have played FIFA in the garden using my Kishi on my phone. But imagine the screen on my phone, even though I've got quite a chunky phone, I would have thought the screen might be a bit too small to play well.
I played on my tablet, so that's a 10-point something inch.
Yeah.
So it was like a little mini television out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't too bad. It ran perfectly fine, and it was a lot cooler than being indoors. So I was grateful for the cool breeze after the sun had gone down. Right then, Richie, before we get into the bulk of the show. We do, of course, here, because our third member is missing right now. He's away on his paternity leave. And we've got this ongoing thing, Richie, where we get our lovely audience out there, you viewers and listeners, to send our colleague and friend, Tom, a hashtag. Hashtag for this week is hashtag human DLC. And the reason, I think you said, I think we added this to the doc, like very early hours of the morning. My brain was going off in one.
I read this just before starting to record this show, and my immediate thought is Chris thought of this like 2 o'clock in the morning when he's just tidying up the dock or something. He's come across something, I'll put that in the dock. It's like, I'll do the hashtag now. Yeah.
And that bodes the question, Richie, before we even get into all the Stadia news. Is a baby just human DLC?
I don't know, because you're not adding it onto yourself.
True, but you're adding it onto your life, your family.
Yeah,
it wasn't there at the beginning. Well, it's definitely paid content, because they ain't cheap.
That's one for the comments.
Yeah.
Comments, let us know. Is a baby human DLC?
That is right. Comments down below. Is a baby just human DLC? Let us know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. And in the meantime, send Tom some love. Hashtag human DLC. He might not know what it means. He may do. But obviously, still all the best. And no doubt we'll hear some news imminently. Right then, Richie. Yes. Topics of science, physics, everything like that aside. That's how serious I take that question. Let's move into the actual bulk of the show. And if you could do me the honours of giving me the rundown for the
super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka the news.
The news this week sponsored by 2 of our newest members to our Sounds of Stadia YouTube membership program. 2bag313, long-standing member. Great to have you as part of the team. Enjoy your extra stickers, your badge next to your name in the chat, and of course your early access to our Sounds of Stadia SideQuest episode. Not only that, we've also got Phil McGrath joining as well. Thank you very much, which pushes us almost to 55 people on our membership program. Each and every one of you is an absolute legend. And you're also a human DLC. But let's get into the news, Richie. Story number one, fresh, funnily enough, fresh from last Monday when last week's show went live. Ubisoft done us a dirty. They threw us under the bus, Richie, just as our show went live. Clive, who was our guest last week, of course, he'll have been able to pick that up on his live show because it wasn't on until the night time on the day of release. But first story of the week, Tom Clancy's xDefiant. Was it Defiant or Deviant? Defiant.
xDefiant.
I've been saying Deviant since it was announced. Either way, Tom Clancy's xDefiant is a free-to-play, fast-paced, first-person shooter. It combines intense gunplay with personalised loadouts and specialised factions as teams of gunfighters called Defiants battle for domination across, I don't know, the Tom Clancy world, I guess. Developed by Ubisoft San Francisco, Tom Clancy's xDefiant features playable factions from the Tom Clancy universe and beyond, each with unique abilities. Pair them with an arsenal of primary and secondary weapons, attachments and devices, and complete your loadout and go to battle with a variety of maps and modes. So they had a little short video segment. They had some of the people from the dev team show up on a live stream, showcase a very small bit of gameplay, if I'm honest, of what this game looks like. It's essentially, if you took Rainbow Six Siege and put it into a 6v6 shooter arena, almost. That's probably how I want to say it.
It looks like, to me, it plays a bit closer to Call of Duty than Rainbow Six Siege. Mm-hmm. It's like a bit more fluid, faster pace, where Siege is meant to be quite methodical. But it's got some hero-based elements to it. Mm-hmm. But they do stress in one of the videos I watched that gunplay was the most important thing to them. So it's not all about using your specials and stuff. So it's not an Overwatch, but yeah, it's just like half step from a Call of Duty to something like an Overwatch. Yeah,
they showed a couple of bits off with some of the special abilities. Clearly, invisibility, stealth, some kind of laser shield goes up. Yeah. But yeah, like you said in the announcement video, they did call it a high octane arena shooter, playable solo or with friends, that features loads of characters from like The Division, Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, making yet another appearance in a game that is not a Splinter Cell game. I'm sure that irked a lot of Ubisoft fans out there. But yeah, essentially 6v6, but more importantly, free to play and coming to Stadia. Presumably with crossplay. I don't know if they confirm that.
I think it does.
Oh, it is, with full crossplay. Expected at launch. So PS5, Xbox, PC, Luna, Stadia, full crossplay.
Do we know if full crossplay counts for PS5 as well?
Yes, PS5 is in there as long with the Series X. So it's everything across the board. It's available on.
Fantastic. That's what
expected. Oh yeah, that's what you want. Especially again as Stadia players, we know we've lamented the online player base, just the user pool from the get go. The fact that this game is going to launch out to the world en masse, cross-play with everyone, that's huge. That's great, and everyone's getting in on kind of step one.
They're going into quite a saturated market, but with the Tom Clancy name behind it and the fact it's free to play, I think they've got a really good chance of being like another Apex Legends where they carve out their own niche within it. Mm-hmm. So I think I saw some comments initially like, "Oh, why do we need this game?" But I think it might do quite well. It's a Ubisoft games, Tom Clancy. It's free to play. That is a big thing for me, as someone who isn't overly keen on these multiplayer shooters. It being free to play means I will at least give it a go.
Certainly. Speaking of giving it a go, did you sign up for the beta?
Yeah.
You did. Wonderful. Although, funnily enough, the beta not available on Stadia. Do you go for PS5?
Sorry, I'm thinking the wrong thing. I haven't signed up for the beta.
Yeah, at the end of the video, they sent a link so you can sign up to participate in the early rollout phases. So it says closed tests will begin on PC and other platforms soon. But yeah, a couple of takeaways for me. Game looks fun. It looks very similar to most shooter things. 6v6, you jump in, loads of special fancy gadgets to keep it interesting and exciting. A couple of things. I'm not overly keen on the name when I first saw it.
That's a terrible name.
I don't understand why the X is before the word. Like, why not just Defiant?
It doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Tom Clancy's Defiant. That's a good name.
Defiant.
xDefiant.
Yeah,
it sounds like a very 90s thing. We're going to put X in front of it because it's cool.
Yeah, like something. The other thing I took away is the bright neon colours. I feel like I'm getting a bit, funnily enough, saturated with all of the bright colours right now, which is obviously the complete not what it means, but I feel like every game is just let's throw a pot of paint at it, bright yellow, bright pink, bright green, and I think they're all starting to look a bit samey right now.
I think, games go in trends. Like you know for a fact, I'm not fond of the Fortnite style, the graphical style of Fortnite, and that just seems to be penetrating everywhere. But I think it's one of them, they'll turn up the saturation because it's more eye-catching, so they might catch the younger audience a bit better. I think that'll be their thinking.
Yeah, I mean, again, they're a business. It's a game. They're looking at the widest audience possible. I totally understand why they would base it on stuff that's been so similar. But I think we had Far Cry New Dawn, Rage 2. There's another game that we got that was all Dead 5. It was all bright neon. I'm kind of just like, I'm over it now. Pick a different art style.
Yeah. Sometimes give me a bit more of a grounded, grittier art style, almost.
Yeah, it is warfare at the end of the day. But I get they're coming from more of a fun angle. It's gadgets. It's free to play as well. So
and I think they're also probably slightly wary about standing too close to Call of Duty in terms of the art style and too close to Battlefield. As effectively the newcomer on the block for this, they want to go, okay, we need to make this look like a Ubisoft game and not look like we're just... Because in the end of the day, it's a first-person military, basically a first-person military-based shooter with some abilities tagged on. You run very close to Call of Duty, and if you go for like a realistic graphic style.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll definitely obviously keep an eye on it. We'll definitely be playing it because it's free and it's coming to Stadia, and we have a great time with our community. Yeah, playing Siege with our community has been some of the best streams we've had in recent months. It's really, really fun and fantastic. The other takeaway I did get from all this, whilst I was watching the trailer at the moment, I was cooking dinner, seeing what was going on, and it made me feel a bit sad for Hyperscape.
Yeah, that game just didn't find its way.
Is it still... I mean, I know it's still out and they're working on it, but it seems odd to pivot so soon to yet another arena shoot. I know Hyperscape's more Battle Royale focused, but... Yeah, it just seems kind of like that. And in the same caveat, did you see they also cancelled the Tom Clancy mobile game? Less than a year after it's been out. I think it's going to be cancelled under a year. No surprise. We covered
mobile games. I think mobile games are always going to be a risk. It's a different sort of risk with a mobile game.
Very true.
A mobile game, I think, sometimes it could absolutely explode, or sometimes it could just be dead on arrival.
Yeah, that would be a good name for a game, Richie. Tom Clancy's Dead on Arrival. Yeah. You never know. You
can put Tom Clancy in front of anything and it works, apart from an xDefiant.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my thing as well, is what makes this a Tom Clancy specific game other than the factions from his universe and his name at the top? Like, I'm curious if this game was always intended to be Tom Clancy, or it got so far down the pipeline and the team at Ubisoft went... Let's stick his name just at the top. And
I doubt the initial concept when we're going to make it in the first initial drafts. I think we're going to make it Tom Clancy's game. What should we do?
Yeah.
Although it could have been like, can we make it Tom Clancy arena shooter? That could have literally been. That could have been a thought.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But it could also been, we've got this concept for a game. It's going to be a military shooter. Is it going to be a military arena shooter? Is it? Is actually one like that? I think the closest might actually be Siege, because it's not a battle royale.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I think it could take a big audience from there. They have clarified as well. There's personalized play style, so you can pick your factions, your traits, your abilities. So there is going to be a lot of kind of setup and your layout, which is very. Well, I mean, it's any shooter game to be fair, but it's very reminiscent of Siege, where your layout can have a big impact on your fight style or your team's kind of approach. They've said competitive clashes as well, so we know it's 6v6 with different game modes. Domination, of course, escort. No doubt you're going to have capture the flag.
Capture the flag.
Capture the flag. But yeah, they're going to combine that, so there's going to be all sorts of game modes in rotation. I'm sure there's plenty of varieties of maps. No doubt the maps are probably going to pull from a lot of Tom Clancy worlds.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised to see a little segment in New York and then a little segment in maybe the new Rainbow Six Extraction. I'd love to see them go wild with it and just pull from like loads of Ubisoft things. And then that makes me think, if it wasn't Tom Clancy, they could have had everything from like Assassin's Creed games. They could have had Rayman levels, almost like Smash Brothers does. But
might be a bit too much for. Yeah. It seems like, apart from like the ability seemed to be based on tech rather than like weird powers and stuff. So it's
certainly.
just
Keep it grounded.
It seems to have keep it a bit grounded, yeah.
Keep it grounded. If it wasn't grounded, it could be Tom Clancy. But yeah, it'd be interesting in a different alternate universe. There is Ubisoft's xDefiant, and it's all of their IP, Prince of Persia, World, all that just pulled together. But again, different, off on a tangent there. So Tom Clancy's xDefiant, not Deviant, Chris, will be coming out. Did they even give a date for it? Did they? They just said early beta in the future. My guess is probably end of the year.
Yeah.
August 5th
sure.
is the testing ends or opens on August 5th. I'd imagine it seems like a game that won out before Christmas. I feel like announcing it, especially a free-to-play game, I don't think it needs that much of a... Like we saw with Apex Legends, a shadow drop is huge for these type of games. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be long. I think we're going to see a couple of betas, early access, and then I can see it being rolled out before Christmas.
They might not want to stick a date on it till they're closer, because you know what Ubisoft's been like recently with delays.
That is true. That is very true. But excited all the same, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners out there who are not only big Ubisoft fans are also big fans of Stadia, surprisingly, and on a Stadia podcast. I'm very curious to see if the Ubisoft Plus subscribers get anything extra. I'm sure there's got to be some perks or something for being a subscriber.
Maybe some skins and stuff, like little trinkets and stuff to attach to your weapons, I imagine, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, they do all that through Ubisoft Connect as well, don't they?
Yeah.
So
the sort of stuff you can get on Siege, to be honest. That's what I'd expect.
Yeah, indeed. But that's our first news story of the week. Exciting stuff. Moving on to our second one, we are going to delve a little bit into the EA Play Live. Of course, if you didn't watch that, myself and Richie watched along this past Thursday in our normal live stream slot. We checked it out. We saw plenty of games. Quite short. We actually said, Richie, when we rounded it all up, they didn't actually showcase that much across the 40 or so minutes.
Yeah, not really. I mean, what was there, 6 games in total, but one of them kind of wasn't there.
Well, we joked about it going into it, that they mentioned there was no Star Wars, they mentioned there was no Dragon Age, they mentioned there was no Mass Effect, and they went ahead of time 2 weeks ago with the FIFA news drop. We know about Madden. So we were almost going into it pondering what IP does EA actually have left, and we didn't think they would mention Codemasters, but that brings us into our second story, which is also Stadia tinged in a way. They announced Grid Legends as due to come out from Codemasters, my words today, in 2022, so next year. It's been announced for Series X, S, PS5, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and it was shown off. Essentially, the official blurb for Grid is the legendary Grid World Series returns, and this year players are front and centre in a fly-on-the-wall documentary that captures every moment on and off the track. Drivers encounter fierce personalities, internal team politics, and infamous Raven West Motorsport, whatever that means, which hopes to take a 6th World Championship, developed using innovative, in fact, virtual production, which brings players closer to the action. The Underdog Tale features an eclectic cast, including award-winning British actor Ntuti Gatwa. More grid, more races, more tracks, more vehicles than ever before, with a fancy... They're using the same cameras they use to shoot things like The Mandalorian for Disney+. We discussed it on the live stream. The big LED sets where essentially they can alter and record the entire backdrop rendered in super 4K using the Unreal Engine. And the actors basically just go into the stage set and it's like they're in the world, and it's fantastic, and it's like projection mapping better than ever before, and it allows the actors to get a better thing. Interesting to see them using video games, but then at the same time they're using real actors, not animation.
Yeah.
But for us, Richie, Grid Legends, it's obviously the follow-up to Grid, which was one of the early launch games on Stadia. Codemasters, now part of EA, Electronic Arts bought them out. They pipped 2K to buying them out for a lot of money a few months back. Not announced for Stadia. Yeah. And this kind of rolls into one of our SideQuest episodes from the other week. We've got our 5 EA games now. Codemasters are now part of EA. Will we ever know if this was ever in the pipeline for Stadia? And if so, why isn't it?
Well, it's an interesting one because we were predicting we're not going to see much of Codemasters because of how recent the buyout was. So I was like, well, I suspected Codemasters would be working on another Grid game, but it felt like maybe it's a bit too soon to show something off. I was wrong, clearly. Mm-hmm. So this makes me think it's possible this could have been in the works for Stadia, because Grid was on there. but now is no longer. It's hard to know. It's like it might have been part of an idea. Okay, we'll make this game, we'll port it to Stadia, but nothing like signed and agreed with Google.
Yeah,
But
it's a way. Obviously,
yeah,
we'll never know. But you've got to imagine the first game comes out. There's a whole racing community here at Stadia. We know we've raced with them. In fact, Grid is one of the better of the racing games you and me are actually capable of driving around in.
I think it's the best racing game on Stadia personally.
Yeah, I would go with that as well. I would totally
Other people
agree.
may disagree in your preferences, but I think as a non-racing game fan, Grid was the most fun.
It's the most accessible for us to get into and
Yeah.
have fun immediately, yeah, certainly. But in regards to the game, I can imagine, the first game comes out, whatever happens, you've got to imagine there's a conversation going on between Google Stadia and Codemasters to say, right, that game was great, we love it, we love having it on our platform, let's do a deal to start the second one. And in amongst that, 2K came sniffing around, EA came sniffing around. The game potentially was in the works for a port, and for whatever reason, whether it's EA, the Codemasters development team are just spread too thin. And again, we've heard it time and time again from other publishers and developers that another platform to develop for is just too much at this moment in time. Their teams, they don't have enough of a large team to actually do this. So being brought into the EA fold, EA crunching the numbers, no doubt with every merger and acquisition, there is going to be some fat trimmed from teams, departments where there's a repeat of roles. And for all we know, they've looked at it and said, well, focus on next gen and PS4. There's 120 million PS4s out there. And realistically, if they've not got a deal signed and sealed already, they've probably just went, you know what, hold off on the Stadia front for now. And we'll probably never know, Richie. We'll probably never know.
Yeah, we'll never know for certain unless someone comes out and leaks and stuff, which is very, very rare where you get that sort of leak.
But then...
I think this could be a case of Stadia not doing well in the multiplayer thing, because unfortunately the player base doesn't seem to be there to sustain multiplayer games. So EA may have looked at the multiplayer numbers for Grid and went, yes, it's doing well on Stadia, but it's not doing well enough for us to justify putting it there.
Yeah. And this is we've said,
unfortunate.
And this is where we've said before, this is where the reality of Google to grow the platform need to dig deeper into their bank account and say, you know what, EA, you know what, Codemasters, how much do I need to sign on this blank check for you to fund your team to either recruit more people to port, or what does it look like? Because they can't just sit idly by while another sequel comes out and doesn't land on the platform again. Because realistically, how many people on Stadia are huge Grid fans? And now they're going to switch over to their competitors' platforms yet again to play the follow-up game.
Yeah, this is the thing. Like, I've always been an advocate for Stadia being great for casual gamers or gamers who are focused on one franchise, one genre game, and they don't necessarily want to go out and buy a £450 console when they buy a game a year. And Grid falls into that category, something like FIFA. And I don't. It's hard to know what Google's and EA's relationship is like, because all we know is at one point there was a 5-game deal, and now we know 5 EA games are coming to Stadia, or are already on Stadia. It's Madden and FIFA still haven't come yet, the next ones, and there's been no mention of any change to that deal. There's been no new EA games announced coming to Stadia. I mean, so it's hard. Usually, I would say is like maybe they've offered a bag of cash, but the bag of cash wasn't big enough for EA, and said he weren't willing to pay more for it.
Yeah,
because I would say Grid is a niche game.
Yeah, especially like if you break down the segments between like racing titles, you've probably got people who buy them year in year out. But again, there's only so many you can play. I think Project Cars is another one that doesn't get the crew from Ubisoft. Probably doesn't. It's so fragmented amongst all these games, but. It's just another kind of like blip on the radar of you and summarising there.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything other than Ubisoft. No. Like Ubisoft coming directly out and giving us a couple of games at the Forward event. We've not heard anything bar a couple of blog posts about what to expect other than being told to batten down the hatches and 100 games are coming this year. And again, we've said on the podcast many, many times, as much as we love this platform, we need some kind of indication to what we'll be playing in the back half of this year. And as it stands... 2 Ubisoft games delayed. We know we're getting FIFA. It's probably the biggest one right now. Oh, Far Cry 6 is still coming. Thank you, Ubisoft. But if Grid is yet another sequel that's not coming, Formula 1 hasn't came. That's came and went last Friday. That came out. They need to communicate with their audience a bit more. We've said it time and time again, but
yeah, otherwise people are going to look what's coming on PlayStation. Bear in mind, we're still in the first year of the PS5 and Xbox Series X. They're going to ramp up in what they're offering in the next few years.
Yep.
They're just getting going with their current generations.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's that roadmap. It always seems to come back to a roadmap.
Yeah,
like,
and we know
if people don't know what's coming and then do know what's coming on other platforms. I've seen loads of people post in Facebook groups about how they've moved on to like Xbox or PlayStation.
Yep.
And just didn't want to, but I've looked at what Stadia's currently offering. Look what's coming, and when I'm better off spending my money over here.
Yeah, and this is where it's the market share we talk about all the time, because I've, at the top of the show, I said I've spent the last several months mostly playing my PS5 because I wanted to play Mass Effect. It was a big new game, came out.
Yeah.
Only could play it on my PlayStation. I'm sure loads of people did it on Xbox as well. Ratchet and Clank exclusives. We ain't getting any exclusives as far as we've been told. So there's another month of my gaming sphere gone. Yes, we came back for Siege. Yes, I'll be buying and playing FIFA on Stadia because the convenience is undoubtedly the best selling point, and I absolutely love it for that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the games to be there at my convenience, I have to go elsewhere as a gamer.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's it. We've always been open. We'll go out and buy the games that we want to play, and wherever we play them, I'm one. If I think I'll get a better performance on my PS5 in the game, I'll probably go for the PS5 version, even if it is on Stadia. Mm-hmm. So even Stadia's even competing for me as someone who's largely for the last 18 months played almost exclusively on Stadia.
Yeah.
A bit here and there on my PS4 and PS5, but mainly Stadia, to be honest.
Yeah. And viewers, listeners, if it sounds like we're going off on a little rant again, I know sometimes it can sound like this, and I'm sure. I mean, basically, yes, but I'm sure, again, we can get a little bit more context in, though, Richie, because it's not Twitter. We're not limited to characters, and this is why we don't really go off on rants on Twitter. Here, we can talk about it and theorise. But the truth of the matter is, every time another big title or a sequel or a follow-up comes out, and we get no announcement of if it's coming or not, speculation begins. It's human nature to just speculate on the unknown. And when everyone over here on PlayStation, Camp, Xbox, Nintendo Switch is saying, well, we're getting it, it's coming day and day, here. As a consumer, my brain goes, well, I want to play it over there. I want to be with the cool kids who have all the cool stuff. And over here, it's just tumbleweed and silence.
Yeah. Especially when you are one of the cool kids who has the cool stuff. Anyways, like, well, I can play this. I just don't play on Stadia. That's the thing. Like, they're competing for a market share, and that means that you have to get games.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get games day and day, and you have to get the big titles. And we already know Battlefield's not coming. We know Grid's not coming.
Yeah. Speaking of other thing, we might as well get this quickly in here, Richie. They did announce EA, which we suspected as well, not a legendary edition of a Dead Space trilogy, but we did get the announcement of a Dead Space remake of the first game.
Yeah.
The original came out back in 2008, for those who don't know. It was made by Visceral Games, who've now been closed and shuttered by EA, one of the bad moves they made over the last couple of years, if you ask me. It's getting the remake treatment for PS5, Xbox X and S, and PC. So it's obviously a very atmospheric third-person horror game, very akin and inspired, I would imagine, by Resident Evil fame, maybe mixed in with a little bit of Alien. You're on a terrifying journey through the shadowy interior of the mining ship, the USG Ishimura, from its crew all being slaughtered by the nightmarish creatures known as necromorphs. Essentially, the game follows on from there. You play as Isaac looking for your missing partner, and there's lots of just sci-fi space stuff with lots of death and scary jumps along the way. And I'm excited to see it. Having now finished 2 Resident Evil games in their entirety, I am a lot more confident going into Dead Space without having to maybe wear a nappy when I play, or a diaper for our American audience out there. And great announcement. Not coming to Stadia, so we won't spend much time with it. But again, it's just another big AAA title that they're not getting as far as we're concerned. So I'll be playing that on my PS5. In all its beautiful high-res graphics, haptic feedback, probably scared the shit out of me with the DualSense controller. But anyway, in and amongst that, we got some other EA news, but none of it was Stadia relevant. We heard nothing, of course, of Jedi Fallen Order. FIFA was all on show ahead of time. Yeah. But alas, Richie, rant over. We'll move out of this segment before we get drawn in. But they've still got time, we should say. That is the one saving grace, is Dead Space and Grid Legends are still a year or so out. So we have time
Yes.
for it to get the shit together, essentially.
There is, but it's not a good look when you're not there. When you haven't you haven't turned up to the party, and the other guys have.
Yeah, you're just...
Like,
you're
you
just,
might still turn up, but who wants to be the one who turns up to a house party at 2 o'clock in the morning? The party's still going.
But you're
you're sober.
You're sober. You're trying to catch up, and everyone's
Yeah.
It's not. We've all been there at some point, but yeah, you're the taxi ride home at the end of this instance.
Oh, you're here. Can you give me a lift home?
Yeah. Do you mind? Did you bring any mixer with you? We've run out.
I was just thinking about ordering a taxi actually.
Yeah, that's the worst time, getting kicked out.
Yeah.
Excited for Dead Space again, but we'll talk more about that in the future, hopefully. Third story of the week. Richie, you tagged me in this during the EA Play event, actually, to my surprise. Over on Twitter, Stadia been ramping up very recently. The official Google Stadia account, getting out there, tweeting loads out. Very interesting, keeping it active. No 2 days are alike. We love to see it. They tweeted out something about crowd play, Richie. Just to tease crowd play, that they're opening up some more applications about any content creators like ourselves wanting to get in on the crowd play, which crowd play, of course, is where viewers who are watching along on YouTube can join a virtual queue to play the game with the content creator. We saw it with Dead by Daylight. We trialled it. I think we trialled it, right? Did we? I feel like we've used it.
We've done crowd choice. We've done a lot of click to play stuff. I don't think we've done crowd play.
We're not big enough, really, are we, for crowd play? Our audience are fantastic enough to just take turns and rotate out.
Yeah.
But to the story's point of the matter, they then subtweeted that with "looking at you, Sega" official account, and then some sideways glance emojis, which immediately my brain was like, Sega, Stadia, what could this be? Crowd play, what are they teasing? We were thinking, what games does Sega do that could even have crowd play? And then they followed it up with an advert for the Olympics, Tokyo Olympic 2020 game that was already out on Stadia. It was just a little promo, because obviously the Olympics started this week.
I foolishly got a little bit excited. Oh my god, there's something Sega coming to Stadia. Forgot about the Olympics game, and it was right on the eve of the Olympics as well that the tweet went out. So in context, when you think about it, fine, I understand what you've done there, but I was just a bit disappointed that we're not getting a Sonic game.
Yeah, I think it
might be. Crowd play would work with a Sonic game, but
crowd play with Sonic, who knows? I mean, if we talk about crowd play and joining in, let's face it, Tails in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was the prime example of crowd play. Just join in for a few minutes, leave, someone else jumps in, he dies, rejoin again.
But you're just floating down, and Sonic spin dashes off the map, like, oh, Tails is dead.
Tails is dead again. Boom, against the camera.
Yeah.
Slight disappointment in that one. It was just that it's the side eye emoji, Richie. It's just it means something's up. It means something cheeky might happen. Alas,
I mean, the Winter Olympics game could actually work well with crowd play. Jump in for the different events and stuff.
Undeniably, it's great to get fresh people in especially with all the different competitions. They don't last that long. Like a 100-meter sprint in a game should last no more than 15, 20 seconds at the Olympics anyway. If it's in real time, that is, which I presume it is. Which Sonic should win. We should point out as well. I know he's not in the game. He's a mascot. He's a guy wearing a mascot suit.
It's a guy in a Sonic suit. Yeah.
Yeah, that gets you as well. But all in all, it's great to see they're doing these partnerships. I love to see it. The Olympics are fantastic. I've been catching just some of the highlights that have been going on right now. It's human fitness and athleticism at its absolute finest. It's also got crowd play, apparently.
Yeah.
So go check that one out if you wish to. Moving on, the next story of the week, Richie. This one is for you, undoubtedly, because we mentioned it at the top of the show. You did a first look at One Piece World Seeker. It came out with a fantastic discount, down to £15 from $50-60, I believe it was. And out of nowhere, you put up a first look at this game on our official account. For the people like myself who have no clue what this franchise is, where it comes from, or where it exists, give the people a rundown of what it is and your first impressions of the game, please.
So, One Piece as a franchise has existed for about 24 years. It's just past its 24 years anniversary. It is, I think, at the moment ranked the second highest grossing comic or manga of all time.
Wow.
So it's not small by any stretch of the imagination. It's an absolute behemoth of a franchise. It's story based as well. It's not like it's never actually been like rebooted or anything. So like things like I think it might be Superman as number one or Batman.
Okay.
Where they just reboot every 5-10 years, whatever it is. It's a continuous story which is still going weekly.
Wow.
So it's huge. That's the level of franchise we're talking. It's like over in the West, I think the most well-known anime is probably Dragon Ball.
Right.
But worldwide, One Piece beats it
Right.
in terms of popularity. That's the level we're talking. But when it comes to anime-based games, I'm usually incredibly skeptical because they tend to just put out mediocre games but rely heavily on the franchise to sell it. But for £15, I figured why not give it a chance? And it's quite fun.
So yeah, I checked out your first look, just like you all should. YouTube.com/Sounds of Stadia. Available now to buy. I still think it's still an offer for £15, right? The deals. I mean, you won't be able to tell now. You won't be able to check.
At the time of recording, I think it is, yeah.
But it is for the premium edition as well, which means it comes with three of the story chapter additional episodic packs and a couple of bonus items. But yeah, I checked out the first look, and yeah, you were dressing the characters like you could tell you knew them straight away. Going like, there's Luffy, there's Thingy, and it was just kind of like, you're one of my best friends, and I had no clue you watched this. I knew what it was. So, and we said off camera, I think before the EA Play event, you were saying like, well, it's so like Japanese like manga. It's not.
Yeah, no one of a friendship group really has an interest, so it just never comes up.
And you're telling me you've watched all 700 episodes. You read the comics, and then watching it, you could tell you knew what you were talking about. Which, from a first look point of view, that's fantastic. I would have played that just been like, who's this guy?
Well,
why has he got bendy arms?
This is why I wanted to do a first look on it, because I know the franchise quite well, and like. I was skeptical about the performance of anime-based games, but for £15, I imagine, well, there's probably a lot of people like me who have an potential interest in the game, but a bit skeptical, and that's where I think a first look can come in quite well. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's worth, if you like the franchise, I think it's worthwhile for £15. I wouldn't pay full price for it.
Yeah,
it feels a little clunkier, as I would expect. It feels like a AA title, not a AAA title.
Production value was quite good from what I saw, though.
Yeah, it's funny enough.
The world.
There was a few things like I noticed, is like his footsteps weren't great. Sometimes the controls feel a little bit jankier than I'd like, not as smooth, especially in things like traversal, because I did play a bit longer after the recording.
Right.
But for a £15 game, you really can't go wrong.
Yeah. So in regards to the game itself then, I heard you mention throughout it takes place in a certain part of the story, does it? I think you mentioned
I was trying to pinpoint what point in the story is, and I think I got it wrong, because when I actually went back, I foolishly, I didn't watch the intro sequence because I was busy recording my intro for the video, and that actually positions a bit better. So it was actually positioned a little bit later in the story than I thought, but not massively.
Right. Okay.
So if anyone is interested in One Piece, be careful of spoilers, because there'll be spoilers just literally in the intro sequence.
Right. Okay, that's good to know. But it's crazy. So in the blurb thing, they said, experience an original story. The Straw Hat Pirates arrive on a mysterious island known as Prison Island, and they're soon caught up in a dramatic story full of twists and turns, including original characters. It looks just crazy. So this main character guy, why has he got stretchy arms like Spider-Man? Why can he spin his legs like a helicopter?
Right.
What the hell is going on? I know it's Japanese manga, but like, give me some concept of who this crazy kid is.
The superpower system in the One Piece world is based around these things called devil fruits, where each fruit bestows like a user a different ability, but also means they can no longer swim, and it's based around, it's pirate manga.
Okay. So
not being able to swim, pretty big deal when you spend most of your time on boats. The fruit that Luffy ate is the gum fruit, which basically he's turned into rubber.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So that's why he saw this kind of stretchy, weird stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he's got Mr. Fantastic powers, Elastigirl kind of set up. Right. Okay. He's got very crazy eyes as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looked genuine. Like you look like you had a great time with it. So go check it out.
It was better than I thought it was going to be, but yeah.
And yeah, like you said, for £15, Like some of the pro
That's
deals
it.
we get at launch with like launch games,
And
they're fantastic.
that wasn't a pro sale either. That was just a sale.
I think it's on both. I think it is pro and that. The pro one
Yeah.
might last longer or something. Pro. Oh, there you go. Which
Yeah.
game is discount to both pro and non-pro members until 3rd of
Yeah.
August. So go check that out. You've got a couple of days at the time of recording to go pick that one up. And I'm sure Richie will be playing a little bit more of that in the coming days. Once you've jumped around, of course, between all of your little, what did I say earlier on?
Yeah.
Pimping yourself out to all
Yeah,
the other
pimping
ones.
myself out.
Yeah, to all the other games. And again, it's another lean into the Japanese world of video games that we don't often see
Yeah.
promoted as heavily in the West. We've got all the Ys games, we've got the Trails of Cold Steel games,
Yeah.
and now this. So it's great to see Stadia looking elsewhere than just the Western market. So it could bode well for some of those other titles in the future. Maybe
Which is
some
odd
that
for a
come
platform that currently isn't in Japan.
yeah, it kind of is when you say it out loud. But we've got another story actually that does pertain to that, which is a Sega game as well. But moving on from that one, then we will also discuss another title we found out this week. Unfortunately, no longer coming to Stadia. Road 96. We covered a good couple of weeks back. It might have been at the Big 10 of the year when Tom was kicking around with us. Road 96. Was confirmed earlier in the year by the CEO of Digixart, I want to say, as the developer of the game. And in the trailer, they mentioned that it was coming. It kind of caught us off guard. I think it was at an indie dev summit they showcased it. It looks almost somewhere between a Annapurna, almost like a Firewall game / with a Telltale story. Each outcome's different. Look really interesting. I don't think they've put a date on it confirmed yet, but unfortunately, in some weird twist of events, the same person, Johan van Eyes, has came out and said that we did some tests, and quote, we did some tests on Stadia last year, and this technology is wonderful. The game ran really smoothly on it. If we have the resources and the time, we would be happy to release the version of Road 96 in the future. As a studio of only 15 people, it's really hard to make several platforms at the same time. So unfortunately, Richie, down to, it looks like resources, we're no longer getting this very interesting looking story-driven game on the platform anymore, which, after being announced and not being announced, it is a big shame. This goes back, though, surely this is where Google should be digging into their pockets and saying, no, we really want your game on Stadia. Like, what can we do to either fund some more staff members? We know Stadia have worked with porting teams in the past for other titles. Can we get a porting studio to help support you bring it across to our platform, especially with all the new porting toolkit they promoted at the Dev Summit the other week?
Yeah,
it's just.
A shame. I'm guessing this is one of them. I'm assuming this conversation's happened and the deal couldn't be reached. From Stadia, they might look at it, although it looks like a cool concept for a game, is it going to move the needle enough for Stadia to warrant throwing enough cash? The cash that this developer would need to port it over.
Yeah, that's always going to be.
It all comes down to business. Would Stadia see a return on that investment?
Yeah, and we said a lot with Clive last week that the return on investment so early in the game, it's never going to be all sunshine and rainbows. You're not going to drop 10 million and get 20 million back. It's not quite as 2-to-1 odds as that. But if I think you worded it actually the best when you said you're investing in your own platform to grow it.
Yeah.
So
you invest in the future of your platform.
Yeah, so you might be taking a loss now, but in the long game, your library's bigger. You've got more people's interest to garner from a variety of different titles.
I think this is more excusable than the EA titles, because while this actually looks like a really, really cool concept, no disrespect to the developers, EA is a huge tentpole of the industry, and one you would expect all the EA games to be on the platform if you're a serious platform.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh.
I do appreciate his honesty and coming out and just saying, look, it's like the technology is phenomenal. That's another developer who said how good Stadia's tech is. Like, I don't think anyone no one's seen behind the curtain, I think, on Stadia and actually said, like, oh, it runs like shit. Like, no one said that. It's always been praised. The downside has always been come to either the porting process or
which they're addressing,
or the online size for the online games out there. But
yeah, it's player. That's it. It largely comes down to player base, and Google need to find a way to solve that problem, because otherwise you're going to get more smaller studios like this go, it's not worth the time and the resources for us to port it over, unfortunately.
Like, we know it's a catch-22 scenario, but
Yeah.
if you're telling me you can get every game from the Hello Neighbor universe on this platform, you can't do anything for Road 96.
The thing is, a flop for a small studio can destroy the studio. Like, they don't have... Well, if Ubisoft gets a flop, they're going to be fine. A small independent studio, not so much.
That is true. But
So they've got to look out for their own interests. So it's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate consequence, and it's a very much a catch-22 situation. But I would just hate to see like this game comes out and it gets a contender for like best narrative of the year or something, because it looks like it could be in that vein where it's going to tell a really good story, and I could see this getting like Dice Game of the Year or something. Like, I mean, Untitled Goose Game won it, and it could have been on the platform, but down to resources and possibly funding from the Stadia front, or obviously the developers themselves have said they're quite small. There's only 15 of them. Could something have been done? I'd hate to look back in like a year's time and it's got all these plaudits and awards for narrative and story and creativity and stuff, and we sit here going, damn, another missed chance.
Yeah.
But only time will tell. But I appreciate the honesty of the dev just coming out going, look, we'd love to, tech's great, we just can't right now. Maybe we'll see it a little bit later. Maybe after it's out on other platforms.
That's the thing we should stress. He's not saying it's not coming. He's saying at the moment they're not planning for it to come.
Yeah.
Which I think are very different things, because if that means there's scope for a potential deal to be worked out, scope for him to change his mind. Mm-hmm. If suddenly you get a spike in the player base and Stadia, or Stadia hand over the new port and go, actually, it's a lot easier than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be very intrigued to know what the rules are a bit more around the Stadia Makers program. Because like we've seen smaller teams get funding because of the Stadia Makers program.
Yeah.
But again, that's all inside baseball kind of knowledge that we'll probably never be privy to unless one of us starts up a dev company, Richie, and applies to be...
Let's start up a dev company.
we'll just Trojan horse our way in. Yeah. Off the back of that, though, we got some more news. Funnily enough, you mentioned Ubisoft, and if they take a loss, it's no big drop in the ocean to them. We also report from our friends over at Stadia Source, Ubisoft title For Honor, which we did not see, is no longer coming to Stadia. So a bit of a reverse in fortunes for the 6-year-old Ubisoft title at this point. It was revealed at an investors call earlier in the year, along with a bunch of other titles, that For Honor would be coming. It caught us by surprise. You, me and Tom were very interested to jump into it. It's obviously been massively supported for the last 5 and a bit years. And unfortunately, they've had another investors call to the detriment of us Stadia fans out here. And the game is no longer listed. And Stadia Source, due diligence, good journalism, reached out to the Ubisoft team to inquire about the Stadia version of For Honor. And the following response was, and I quote, "There was a mistake, and we confirm that For Honor, sadly, won't be coming to Stadia." Very, very brief response, albeit. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't look like For Honor, Richie, is going to be played by us anytime soon on the Stadia platform, unfortunately.
Nope. It seems like in the first investors call, it was listed as a game coming to Stadia when it wasn't meant to be. I wonder if it's another one where there's been a conversation about it. Someone's wrote it down on the document, and then the conversation didn't go anywhere. But yeah, again, it sucks. I was looking forward to jumping into that.
Yeah. With the Ubisoft titles, though, because we know Ubisoft Plus exists, I think with games like this, it may just be a matter of time. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely the impression. I think Ubisoft want all of their library in the cloud, so they can
all the
push
library
Ubisoft
everywhere.
Plus. Yeah.
The Ubisoft don't care where you play their games; they just want you to play their games.
Yeah. So maybe not now, but I could definitely see if For Honor is still like doing well and they're doing more seasonal content, like The Division, like Rainbow Six Siege. Like all the stuff that's planning with Assassin's Creed, I can see it coming back around. Maybe not. We'll just have to wait for another investors call, I guess.
I'm going to hold out. I'm going to be optimistic here and say at some point they'll announce a next gen, a PS5, Xbox Series X update for Honor. If they decide to continue it and not go for like a For Honor 2, and that's when we might see a Stadia launch.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be quite optimistic by that. Again, I have a lot of faith in Ubisoft. It's almost like giving us a roadmap and bringing out new titles day and day has garnered a lot of trust with me. It's weird how that works.
And with Stadia, especially, that we've seen most of the titles come to Stadia. It's a rare Ubisoft title that doesn't make it to Stadia.
I know.
And For Honor is an old game at this point. Which could be part of the reason.
Very old, yeah. I'm excited to play some of the older Assassin's Creed games and stuff when they finally do drop in the next probably couple of months, I would imagine, because they announced the time window between being announced and coming is quite short usually with some of the Ubisoft games.
Yeah.
But speaking of games that could be coming, to loop back around to our sequels on Stadia scenario that we find ourselves in all the more frequently as the year ticks by and more sequelized dates come around.
I feel like
calendar.
This episode's just a sequel to last week's SideQuest.
It possibly quite could be. But I wanted to take this story up. So Lost Judgment, which we have covered on the podcast, again another game, announced, showed off from Sega, not coming to Stadia that we know of. And there's actually a little bit more news came out recently about this one. I don't know if you've seen this in the stories this past week, Richie, but there's actually a reason I believe it's not coming on Stadia. So Lost Judgment, it's the follow-up to Just Judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is a reason. It's a weird one as well.
Yeah, it's a very weird one. So, well, just to clarify beforehand, right? For Honor, spelt wrong. It's missing a U. We're English over here. That's one thing. They're not on the platform anymore, so we can give them a bit of shit. For Honor, spelled wrong. Judgment, also spelt wrong. There's an E in there. You're missing it. 2 titles I have to live with spelled incorrectly.
I didn't even notice the missing E.
Yeah, it's one of them things. And I know why it's spelled like that, but that's not the point. Anyway, into the story. So Lost Judgment may be the final game in the Judgment series, not just not coming to Stadia, because apparently over in Japan, the guy who plays the main character, he's an actor, of course. He does his mocap and stuff, and he does a lot of stuff in Japan for television, not just video games. My guess is the reason Sega got him is because he's a very popular face over in Japan. So to put him front and center as your main protagonist, it's a great move. And apparently his talent agency, known as Johnny and Associates, do not play well over in Japanese culture with PC. So they have this weird thing where they don't have like musicians and everything. They don't run their own like YouTube channels, their own social media accounts. They're all ran by the talent agencies for the most part. This actor didn't even have like a social or a YouTube account up until 2 years ago, which in today's world just seems crazy. But the crux of the matter was they've been blocking the PC versions of the game. And if you recall, when it came out, it was announced for PlayStation. Not Lost Judgment, but Judgment was announced for consoles and Stadia. And we had a little joke about it, saying it's not coming to PC. But if you wanted to play it, you could play it on Stadia. And funnily enough, there's all this legal stuff going on about controls over the actor's likeness, his talent rights, and his image can only be used or restricted to certain places. And these talent agencies apparently just don't like PC because home computers have direct access to the internet and consoles don't, and it's some weird Japanese culture thing that we're obviously not privy to.
Yeah, really.
So
I don't really get it because
it's weird, but
in the end of the day, the more places, I'm thinking more like how Ubisoft seem to look at the world. Like, the more places I can put my game, the more money that we're going to earn. And that counts for the talent agency as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're just cutting off the entire PC market, and those, if you want to, depends whether you decide to classify Stadia as part of PC or part of console, you're just losing out on them sales, which means that they're losing out their royalties because of the image rights.
It's a very odd one. So the report, this is from Video Games Chronicle, by the way. The report claims that Sega has been trying to bring Judgment and Lost Judgment to Steam, but because of the agency, it's blocking it from happening. They may have to either recast the actor or draw a line under the whole series, because obviously this is a series that spins off from the Yakuza franchise.
Yeah.
And it's just it's such a weird place to find them in. But apparent quote from the article as well, the game makers have decided that if they can't distribute the game on Steam, it will be very difficult from a business standpoint, and the series will end with the second game, Lost Judgment, which isn't even out yet, I don't think. And again, just to clarify, it didn't receive a PC port, in brackets, although Stadia technically counts as a home PC version. So, in all things said and done, I wonder if the PC port was actually the catalyst for them going, like, this needs to stop now. Whoever this talent agency is needs to either get in the 21st century or...
Well, if I'm this actor, I'm moving a talent agency because this seems ridiculous, to be perfectly frankly, to be perfectly honest. And if I'm Sega, I'm just going. Maybe I am going making the decision. Going, look, we're going to end the Judgment series, and we're just going to do a any ideas we have for it. We're just going to put it in a different spin-off with an actor who I feel sorry for the actor in this.
Yeah.
Because from what we can tell, he seems perfectly amenable. We don't really know much about him. It seems to be his agency who seem to own his rights.
Yeah.
Getting in the way, but I've gone to say, it's like, I'm sorry, but we're going to go with this guy instead because your agency won't play ball with us.
Yeah, it's very. But
that would be my decision. It's like,
yeah, but we just don't know how things work over in that half of the world, and the reality is, like, we know how, like, I mean, we know how.
I think it's a lot like how the music industry has been in the past over here, where like you'd sign on for a label and they'd own the rights to the music and etc. etc. You get a royalty from the music rather than actually owning the rights.
Yeah, it's certainly an added risk that comes with using actual actors rather than just video game acting. Not that there's any difference, but in terms of like your talent agency role, we saw it actually with Keanu Reeves in Cyberpunk, if you can remember, Richie, the PC version. People were getting content pulled down because they were modding the game so you could do naughty things with Mr. Reeves.
I wonder if.
And it was kind of like, and his agency said, no, you will not be doing naughty things with Keanu as much as you want to. Sir, that's not allowed.
I wonder if that's part of the issue. If they're worried that by having the actors model in PC versions, mods could come up.
Yep, and use it for other purposes.
But to be perfectly honest, I think if anyone was that serious about modding this guy to in a precarious position, they could probably take the PlayStation version, somehow port it across through like an emulator or something, and they could still do it.
Yeah, I mean, very precarious positions potentially. But that does leave Sega and the game, in fact, in a precarious position. But I just wanted to spend a little bit of time digging into it because obviously we've just spent half an episode talking about sequels not coming to Stadia. This time, for this particular game, it might not actually be down to Google or Sega, in fact, or the actor. It's down to this Johnny and Associates talent agency.
They've just shot themselves in the foot because if I'm Sega, I'm not working with your agency going forward. Like, if you're putting these sort of restrictions on there, it's like you can't sell at the PC market. The PC market is huge. Especially in parts like in places like Korea, it's absolutely insanely huge.
Well, let's just hope it's not going to have effect on his career as we move into our final story of the week. Heist Simulator has been confirmed for Stadia, Richie. Some good news, finally. Micro's company director of No More Robots has confirmed via Twitter, not in a Stadia blog, we'll probably hear about it this coming Tuesday, that their game Heist Simulator will be coming to Stadia as well as Steam and consoles. So great news, something very, very different. We don't know that much on the game other than the trailer what showcased. It gives me very Get Packed vibes mixed with something else. I just can't tell what the other thing is yet. Maybe Sims?
Well, it's a heist simulator, so from the looks of it, you have to plan to basically steal some things from various different buildings. So I get why you're getting the Get Packed vibes because it's got that sort of art style. Yep,
certainly.
But
in the blurb they said, time to go back to Heist School. Use the Heist Simulator's level editor and build the burglary story, or build the burglary story, or even home plan of your dreams. Draw up your ideal locations, then fill it to the brim with thousands of props, decorations, and interactables. Then share your masterpiece with the world by uploading it to Heist Cloud. My guess is this is going to have... Why can't I remember the name? State Chair. Yes, thank you for that. It's going to have State Chair all written all over it. You plan out your lasers, your bodyguards, guards, hundreds of other obstacles, every single tool to stop people, and then I share that state with a link out to the masses on our Twitter feed or whatever, and people have to crack into our safe or steal my gold from my safe. I think that could be a very, very smart fit for this type of game. And if anything, I think it could be one of the best ways to get this game out there into social media. I've built a heist, you have to break it. Go. Mission Impossible style.
Yeah, sounds cool. I like as a concept, I like it. I always like when interesting concepts happen where it's not just the same thing over and over again. Like let's put something interesting in there. I'm not sure how this will work on Steam though. Unless there is just a way built in that you can just upload your levels.
Yeah, well, they've said in there the Heist cloud, so I
Yeah.
think that's going to be their online interface. But I'm just thinking
course,
Stadia specific. Yeah, State Share is just a shoe-in for that. Like, just finish the map.
God, yeah.
This is impossible. Share it out to our community. Who can get the best time? If you can even complete the level, knock yourselves out. Go.
Yeah.
Exciting new game, very different type of game, and I'm thrilled to see it heading up to Stadia, especially with the world building of the maps. Could be a very good mouse and keyboard kind of game.
I think that's the bit I'd enjoy more than actually planning the heist myself. I'm just gonna be a bastard and create a horrible level for you.
Chainsaws and like the one from Indiana Jones, Penitent Man will pass and the invisible.
I want laser sharks.
Don't we all? Don't we all? But that's the final news story of the week. We've got a couple of updates for the titles that are out. We do have Chris Tales out now, available on Stadia to purchase. Came out in the middle of the week. Don't forget, it's a gorgeous indie love letter to classic JRPGs with a new perspective. Peer into the past, act in the present, and watch as your choices dynamically change the future, all on one screen as you play. I think Tom was probably the most excited for this game.
I like the look of it. It's slightly overpriced for me. I'm waiting for either a sale or pro.
Sale or pro, no doubt. So as we wrap up the show, Richie, we did have some other stories, but they're not Stadia focused, so we'll skip them for this week. I would love to see, as we head into the last week of the month, any pro predictions for our August 2021 pro games. How are we in August already? How?
Do I do it? Do I say Chris Tales?
So soon? It's getting harder every single month, isn't it? I can't think.
Well, it's because we still don't have because a lot of the big games that we thought might come to pro have either been on pro already, so they're unlikely to come back. Mm-hmm. Or we don't know what's coming forward. But pretty much Ubisoft isn't coming to pro apart from pro sales.
Yeah.
And then the indie stuff, like you just don't know what's coming. I don't know. I could see Heist Simulator potentially being a pro game.
I think it's a ways out. I don't think it's going to be here that quick.
It depends if the dev's tweeting about it, and if we get a blog post next week potentially. I think the timeline could fit.
It could fit. I'm trying to think if it's been a while since we've had I'd say a AAA game for pro. It feels like.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just me not understanding the timeline of things, but again, I'm having a scroll now.
We've had some
through
JRPGs in not too distant past.
So games, I'll just rattle off a few. Cosmic Star Heroines got pro written all over it. That's been out a few months now. $10.99 currently in the store.
Yeah, I say Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. That'd be an awesome pro game. It's currently on sale right now, but I wouldn't use that as a thing to discount it coming to pro.
Do we get maybe Doom? Now we know Bethesda aren't. Well, we don't think Bethesda are playing ball. Maybe it's time to just cut your losses and go, there you go, have it for free. We'll take a little paycheck, I should say.
It could be. I could see that deal with a game, or Microsoft are somewhat, although they are saying like Bethesda is pretty much going to be Microsoft's only developer.
Yeah, they
are still quite amenable for. So if Doom being on the platform, I could see Microsoft being happy to do a deal there.
That's true. Maybe it's a bit too early for Hitman 3 just yet.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, just scrolling down the list, there's Judgment.
Onto a Fall, maybe.
Judgment will be. I mean, we should address the elephant in the room, the big prehistoric elephant. Ark Survival Evolved is still yet to come out, Richie. So that could be.
Are you going to go with Ark again?
I mean, it seems like every month we say it seems like an absolute shoo-in.
Mafia.
And then it never comes. Mafia. Oh, you know what I've just realised looking through the store?
Little Big Workshop?
I've just realised that Life is Strange Remastered and Life is Strange Before the Storm Remastered are separate purchases on the store.
Oh, yeah, they are, yeah.
I didn't realise that. I thought they were all part of one.
Well, they're separate games.
I know, I thought the remastered one was like all of them together, like as a bundle. I didn't realise.
That's a good point. I think...
Yeah,
I think I might have thought that myself. Like...
Yeah, they're both down as individual £19.99 bundles. Either way, fill your boots with that one. Lost Words Beyond the Page, still not gone pro. But either way, yeah, I think Ark Survival Evolved's got to happen sooner or later. Like, not that I care about it. Which brings me, Richie, of course, to our famed segment of the show, which is Where the F is Mafia Trilogy? I tweeted at them this week. Did you see me? Tweeted at them because they passed the 300-day mark. And so as of the time of recording, Mafia Definitive Edition Trilogy is 302 days out from its console release on September 25th, 2000. It's weird to think my birthday is in September, Richie, and people are asking me now what I would like for my birthday this year.
Yeah.
And I've heard not a peep about this Mafia game 2K, Hangar 13, Google Stadia. Whoever needs to tweet out about it, or even just respond to your actual Twitter feeds. Like, people are atting you, and you're just
respond
silent.
Saying, we don't even if you say do
the generic response.
We don't have any information. Thank you for your interest. It is coming. We don't have any information about the date just yet.
Yeah. Just ignoring people isn't a good look. We as such a small little social YouTube channel, we try and make a point of responding to every single comment on YouTube, Twitter, our Facebook feed, anything. So I think, maybe when the year's out. Either way, 302 days, folks. Fill your boots. It seems to be a thing. I don't know what I'm going to do, Richie, when the game actually comes out. Maybe I'll do a reverse countdown of how long it's been out for. Where's Mafia 4?
It's going to come out. You're going to look at the price and go, oh, fuck that. I'm not buying it.
I said I'm not interested in it anymore. I've got other games to keep me busy. So who knows?
If it's a pro game, will you play it?
I might do a first look for a pro game. For a pro game, just for you.
Well, I wasn't going to commit you to a first look, but I was going to just, will you play it?
If I feel like I deserve it to the developers.
I actually do want to see you do a first look because I just want to see you slag it off.
No. Again, the reason I'm interested because the game is well revered, so it's just becoming less so the more time passes for me. And so we mentioned that we try and get back to everybody in our Discord server, Richie. So as we wrap up the show, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, if you want to be more involved with the Stadia conversation, with me, Richie, Tom, and our lovely community, all of our 53 plus members over on youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia, you can hit the Discord link below in the description. Join us in the chat where we have feeds about general game conversation. We've got screen capture shares. We've got, if you want to play a game with another member of the community, you can hit them up and say, you're free this Friday, let's play some Rainbow Six Siege. You can do all that. Even just this week, we were talking about somebody getting married, and we were giving them marriage advice. Congratulations, good luck. And a bunch of other things. Again, we're all just humans, living our lives, getting to know each other, and enjoying games at the same time. So feel free to hop over, say hello, drop into the Discord chat. Don't forget to click like on the video if you've somehow made it to an hour and 13 and haven't done so already. We would appreciate it. It does help the channel grow. It helps us find new people, new audiences, and more importantly, more people who are open to trying and playing Stadia out. Final points from me, Richie. We, of course, after this, will be diving over and recording our next Sounds of Stadia SideQuest episode. Do we have a topic of discussion this week to follow on from last week's sequel talk?
Yes, last week's podcast, actually, we talked a bit about the upcoming Steam Deck, and I figured let's go a bit more in depth on it for SideQuest this week.
Okie dokie. Sounds good. We'll go check that one out. And remember, our members get it up to 6 days early, so do join as a member if you wish to. Hell, you could even join for 99p, watch the episode, and then cancel your membership. Just like Netflix and Amazon, you can do what you want. Of course, any tier gets you everything, stickers, badges, everything like that. We don't gatekeep anything. It will all go free eventually on the Friday for free feeds out there on youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia. Don't forget to check out the podcast in the cloud as well over on podcast services. Other than that, Richie, it's been an interesting week in news. We'll no doubt be playing games this coming Thursday for our weekly community live stream event. We haven't got anything scheduled yet, but we might also get some updates on games. We might even know
Let us know in the Discord or the comments below.
Yes,
what you want to play.
Do let us know. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
We've been Sounds of Stadia. Have a great week. Game on.
Bye.